The US Air Force has the most advanced fifth-generation fighters in the world. No other aircraft can match the F-35 Lightning II and F-22 Raptor in their ability to dominate the air domain. The closest competitors from Russia and China lag behind their US rivals in almost every conceivable performance metric, and this relative advantage is about to get much bigger. New upgrades to the F-35 promise to transform its capabilities, making it the world's most lethal strike fighter for years to come. But there's a problem. The US doesn't have enough F-35s to meet the Air Force's needs at a time when the global threat landscape is intensifying. And a growing list of challenges, from budget constraints to delays to critical maintenance issues, are denting the F-35's production and procurement outlook. Mission-capable rates are also low, meaning the current fleet of F-35s is only partly capable of meeting combat-related requirements. Compounding these problems, the cost of the F-35 program continue to spiral and are expected to hit $2 trillion, according to the Government Accountability Office. Despite these challenges, the F-35 remains vital to the US military's force structure because it will serve as the cornerstone of American air power well into the next decade and beyond. The reasons for this are clear. It's not only about the F-35's outstanding capabilities, but also about the numbers. The Air Force is racing to modernize its aging fleet of fourth-generation fighters to meet the demands of a new security environment defined by heightened great power competition. In particular, China is the foremost pacing threat for all branches of the US military. On this point, Secretary of the Air Force Frank Kendall sounded the alarm in April 2024.
As I've testified before this committee repeatedly, time is my greatest concern. We are in a race for military technological superiority with a capable pacing challenge. Our cushion is gone. We are out of time. As we have briefed the committee at a classified level, the pacing threat moves steadily forward.
As things stand, the backbone of the US fighter force consists of F-16 C and D and F-15 C and E variants, most of which are now decades old. Regular updates to these aircraft mean they are superior to most fourth-generation peers, but Air Force chiefs think they would struggle in a highly contested, advanced threat environment. This reality, alongside difficult budget constraints, is leading the Air Force to rethink its long-term needs, including how it will adapt its fighter force for the 2030s and beyond. To address the problem, the Air Force initially adopted a so-called 4+1 fighter modernization plan, focused on the continuation of 4 key aircraft models: the F-35, the F-16, F-22, and the F-15EX equal to and F-15E under the F-15 umbrella. The A-10 Thunderbolt II was the +1 in this plan, although all units are set to be completely divested by the 2028 fiscal year. As such, the focus will be on the 4 remaining aircraft models, according to recent statements from senior officials. Under the plan, the F-15EX and F-16 will play a leading role in homeland defense, with the potential for limited forward deployment to support fifth-generation air power. A case in point is the deployment of 36 F-15EXs to Japan, alongside an additional 48 F-35As in July 2024. However, the US will now only acquire 98 F-15EXs in total, a significant reduction from the originally planned 144. Meanwhile, fighter and attack planes not included in the modernization plan are being retired rapidly, primarily to reduce costs associated with their aging airframes, which are straining the Air Force's budget. Notably, weapon system sustainment costs for the fighter force are expected to increase 40% above inflation between the 2016 and 2027 fiscal years. Based on the best current estimates, between 2023 and 2028, up to 600 fighters will be divested, while only 246 modern replacements will be acquired. The problem here is that US Air Force leaders are already facing a shortfall of fighter squadrons. At the end of 2022, the head of Air Combat Command, Mark Kelly, said the 48 available fighter squadrons and 9 attack squadrons of outdated A-10s were being asked to do the work of 60 multi-role fighter squadrons. Today, the US Air Force's total fighter force includes just over 2,000 aircraft, but only about 1,400 of these are active duty when taking into account training, test units, and other types. When applying mission-capable rates to these aircraft, the number of available fighters that are ready for immediate combat call-up falls closer to 900, according to separate analyses from the Heritage Foundation and Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies. The bottom line is that the US needs a larger fleet of fifth-generation aircraft to meet current and future military requirements. This leaves the F-35 Lightning II as the real pillar of US air power, at least until the next-generation air dominance program kicks in, although, based on the project's current status and potential complexity, delays seem likely. The original acquisition plans for its fifth-generation fighter fleet required the Air Force to have 800 F-35s in service by 2020, accompanied by 750 F-22s. But as of April 2024, the US had about 630 F-35s in service, including 409 F-35A variants with the Air Force, with the remaining aircraft made up of B and C variants with the Navy and Marine Corps. In addition, the Air Force has 187 F-22 Raptors, of which 123 are in the primary mission inventory. Since F-22 production ended in 2011, and with plans to divest older block versions, including proposals to cut 32 Block 20 Raptors in the 2025 fiscal year, America's fifth-generation fighter fleet is currently much smaller than anticipated. The Department of Defense aims to procure approximately 2,500 F-35s by the mid-2040s, to be distributed among the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. At the moment, however, Lockheed Martin can only produce a maximum of 156 aircraft per year to meet total demand from the US military and global customers, including the UK, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and a range of other countries. This rate of production is close to the upper limit of the company's current capacity on an annual basis. Despite the F-35 being cleared for a full rate of production in early 2024, actual deliveries are below this maximum possible number, as parts shortages, manufacturing issues, and other problems dent total output. The important point here is that current annual production is insufficient to meet both US and international requirements for the F-35 by 2040. International demand for the F-35 keeps growing, and this is heaping pressure on stretched production lines with an already high backlog of orders. In 2023 alone, Canada announced the purchase of 88 F-35s. Singapore said it would acquire a further 8 aircraft. Israel opted to buy an additional squadron of F-35s, while Romania submitted a request for 32 F-35s, which looks set to be approved. Meanwhile, the Department of State greenlit the sale of 25 additional aircraft to South Korea. And there is little sign of this demand cooling. In January 2024, the Czech Republic ordered 24 F-35s, becoming the 18th nation in the global F-35 program. It is unclear how the balance between foreign customer demand and US Department of Defense requirements will be managed, with annual production expected to be capped for at least the next 5 years. But the US Air Force needs an immediate boost to its F-35 fleet to meet its objectives as it seeks to replenish and modernize its fighter force. Right now, it is falling behind its benchmark acquisition goal of 72 modern fighters every year. On this point, a policy paper from the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies has called for a much higher rate of fighter acquisition by the US Air Force. It says the purchase of 109 aircraft per year will be required to sustain the Air Force's capacity and its modern capability, with the F-35 accounting for the bulk of these fighters. But recommendations of this sort require significant funding, and the Air Force's hand is being forced by strict budgetary constraints, ultimately limiting the number of aircraft it can actually acquire. Spending caps under the Fiscal Responsibility Act reportedly cut about 2% from the Air Force's top-line budget request for the 2025 fiscal year. Air Force leaders say this reduction has disproportionately impacted modernization efforts. The context here is that the US is running a massive fiscal deficit, while total federal debt is about 123% of GDP, meaning any further expansion of the Air Force budget could be difficult to secure. All of this indicates that the fighter force will be short of much-needed aircraft in the near to medium term, as budget and production constraints limit the Air Force's ambitions. In any case, additional funds must be channeled into the F-35's growing sustainment bill. The Department of Defense now expects the F-35 to operate through to 2088, instead of 2077, as initially planned. The cost of sustaining the aircraft has blown out partly due to this extended timeframe. Putting aside whether 2088 is a realistic end date for F-35 operations, the total sustainment bill is expected to hit $1.58 trillion. This represents a 44% increase on the 2018 estimate of $1.1 trillion. It also means that, together with development and procurement costs of $442 billion, the F-35 program is estimated to hit $2 trillion over its entire lifetime. And spiraling costs are going hand in hand with the F-35 program's broader failure to hit its key performance goals. The F-35's mission-capable rates, which indicates the percentage of time the aircraft can perform just one of its tasked missions, are worryingly low. In the case of the F-35A, they have fallen every year since 2020. Not a single F-35 variant in service with the US met its minimum performance target for mission-capable rates between 2019 and 2023, according to the Government Accountability Office. Worse still is that the F-35's full mission-capable rates, which is the percentage of time that an aircraft can perform a full spectrum of tasked missions, are falling from already concerning lows. One of the main reasons for this situation is slow repair times and broader sustainment challenges that are denting the availability of aircraft. The Government Accountability Office has put forward recommendations to tackle these and other problems, but it says the Department of Defense is yet to address about 70% of these points. A bigger concern is that F-35 deliveries have stalled over the last year as key upgrades to the aircraft have been plagued by technical challenges and delays. Problems with Technology Refresh 3 upgrades, known as TR3, which includes a mix of hardware and software improvements designed to support the F-35's future warfighting capabilities, has led to a huge backlog in deliveries. Secretary of the Air Force Frank Kendall said in March that these delays were already hurting the broader air combat force. TR3 provides the essential infrastructure to support the F-35's adoption of Block 4 capability upgrades, covering everything from advanced radar to target tracking to the use of a wider array of weapons. The Air Force says Block 4 capabilities will ensure the F-35 can dominate the highly contested fight in the Indo-Pacific. To put it more bluntly, Block 4 is what the F-35 needs to counter China and function at a truly fifth-generation level. Lockheed Martin has described these upgrades as a quantum leap in the F-35's operational and warfighting capability. But to reach the Block 4 endpoint, the F-35 needs to be equipped with TR3 hardware and software. TR3 incorporates a new integrated core processor that, according to L3Harris, its third-party manufacturer, offers a 37-fold increase to the F-35's computing power. This will be accompanied by a new aircraft memory system that is 20 times as powerful as its predecessor and panoramic cockpit display with processing and memory capabilities that are 8 and 12 times more powerful than existing designs, according to the Government Accountability Office. Initially, F-35s were scheduled to be delivered and fully TR3 enabled by April 2023. This timeline was first pushed back to mid-2024 and then again to spring 2025. The delays are primarily due to severe setbacks in the production of the TR3 integrated core processor, caused by supply chain constraints and product quality testing problems. Additionally, TR3 has faced issues with its software packages, particularly those supporting the F-35's radar and electronic warfare systems. Development problems have been so significant that some US test pilots have reportedly had to reboot these functions mid-flight to get them back online. All of this means that Lockheed Martin hasn't been able to deliver TR-3 equipped F-35s according to the original timeline. And this is having knock-on effects for Block 4 testing, delivery, and development. With fewer resources allocated to mature and develop Block 4 capabilities, fears are growing that vital upgrades in this package will face delays. The US government has, until recently, refused to accept any F-35s that aren't TR-3 enabled, meaning that for most of 2023, up until July 2024, Lockheed Martin's test facilities were piling up with undelivered aircraft. This all changed in July 2024 as US authorities backtracked and agreed to accept F-35s and retrofit them with key TR-3 capabilities at a later date. For the time being, these F-35s will have an interim or truncated TR-3 capability that will facilitate pilot training. However, recent press reports indicate much of the TR-3 combat software has, in fact, been deployed, but will require flight tests and certifications, which are expected to happen in 2025. TR-3 delays clearly present serious challenges to the F-35 program and have arguably slowed the expansion of US and allied fifth-generation air power. The F-35 Lightning II Joint Program Office is now re-evaluating the schedule, scope, and cost of the Block 4 initiative as it looks to prioritize realistic upgrades. For now, this probably means cutting back on the full suite of updates, though we're still waiting to see how this plays out. It's important to note that Block 4 capability upgrades, when first envisaged, only covered 66 individual updates with a total cost of $10.6 billion. It was set for completion in the 2026 fiscal year, but by 2023, this had blown out to at least 80 capabilities, with the price tag climbing to $16.5 billion. So any re-evaluation of the Block 4 wish list will probably see the rationalization of some updates. But this won't dent the massive performance leap inherent in the overall package. And for a project as large and as complex as the F-35 Lightning II, delays, cost overruns, and other problems are to be expected. What's important is the trajectory of the aircraft's evolution, and as of 2024, it looks promising. Key Block 4 capability upgrades will transform the F-35 into an absolute beast and make it a warfighting platform unmatched by America's opponents for years to come. A case in point is Northrop Grumman's new APG-85 active electronically scanned array radar. This cutting-edge upgrade will ensure the F-35 dominance of the electromagnetic battle space. It represents a significant advance from the already impressive APG-81, which equips current fighters. The APG-85 is expected to locate and identify both stationary and moving ground and sea targets, while conducting synthetic aperture radar ground mapping with a massively extended range. In this role, it will perform ground-moving target indication at much higher resolutions and with reduced susceptibility to jamming or spoofing. Importantly, all of this information will be shared with other operators on the same network as the F-35, providing fellow pilots as well as ground and sea crews with an incredible amount of information in any conflict situation. In the air-to-air role, the APG-85 is expected to give F-35 pilots a first-shot targeting opportunity well before any adversary and at a far greater distance than the APG-81. This will offer a major boost to US air power, as a growing number of F-35s complement the F-22 in the air superiority role. The APG-85, like its predecessor, will also be harnessed by the F-35's electronic warfare suite, which is the next generation of BAE Systems' ASQ-239 system to disrupt, neutralize, and prevent the enemy's use of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Moreover, the ASQ-239 reportedly includes improved passive detection of electromagnetic signals at long range in 360 degrees around the aircraft. This will give F-35 pilots the opportunity to identify and track multiple, difficult-to-observe threats and, according to BAE Systems, allow the aircraft to penetrate highly contested, signal-dense airspace. Meanwhile, Raytheon's next-generation distributed aperture system, which is reportedly twice as powerful as the previous design, will also be a game-changer. 6 infrared cameras provide the pilot with a virtual 360-degree view around the aircraft. The helmet's additional displays help the pilot visually locate surface and airborne targets for deploying precision-guided munitions and air-to-air weapons, and also alert the pilot to potential incoming threats covering a range of adversaries and launch points. Wrapping all of these tools together is one of the F-35's greatest strengths, its sensor fusion capability. The F-35 sensor fusion creates a single and fully integrated picture of the battlefield by collating information from the aircraft's entire suite of onboard sensors. This can be shared with other pilots and command and control centers operating on the same network. This integration with other weapons and intelligence platforms is an astonishing attribute. Lockheed Martin describes the F-35 as a node in a network of fighting. And all of these strengths only scratch the surface of the F-35's full capabilities, which are formidable. Block 4 upgrades will also enhance the F-35's arsenal of compatible weapons. The capability to deploy a broader range of offensive munitions will enhance the F-35's impact across diverse conflict scenarios, and, in particular, against a near-peer adversary. Many of these changes facilitate internal weapons bay loadouts, allowing the aircraft to maintain its low observable status, while increasing its destructive power against both air-to-air and air-to-ground targets. In particular, the addition of dual-rail missile racks will allow F-35A and C variants to carry a total of 6 AIM-120 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles internally, instead of 4. This is an important addition for the F-35, given that any future combat scenario in the Indo-Pacific will see US and Allied pilots massively outnumbered in the air. Block 4-enabled F-35s could also be equipped with AIM-9X Block 2 missiles positioned in the internal weapons bays. This is the most advanced short-range air-to-air missile in the US inventory. At present, these weapons are fielded externally by the F-35, but recent reports suggest the aircraft could provide targeting information on an internally loaded missile prior to launch. Beyond air-to-air missiles, significant upgrades are on the horizon in terms of standoff weapons. In July 2024, Lockheed Martin announced its Mako hypersonic missile that can be stowed in the internal weapons bay of the F-35C. The Mako is capable of stand-in and stand-off strikes and is an absolute game-changer for the US 5th-generation fighter fleet, as it gives both the F-35 and F-22 hypersonic strike capability. F-35s can also be equipped with a GBU-53B Stormbreaker precision-guided glide bomb, which boasts extended range and multiple guidance modes, including radar, infrared, and laser. The F-35 can reportedly carry 8 of these munitions internally. In January, the Air Force awarded Raytheon a fresh $345 million contract to produce more than 1,500 Stormbreakers, as part of a broader and long-term acquisition strategy. Meanwhile, in November 2023, various reports suggested Lockheed Martin had been contracted to modify several missiles for use by the F-35, including the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile, the Long-Range Anti-Ship Missile, the Joint Air-to-Ground Missile, and the Hellfire. In addition, Northrop Grumman secured a $705 million government contract to develop a high-speed air-to-ground weapon, designated a stand-in attack weapon. It is being designed to specifically target anti-access area denial targets such as mobile ground-based enemy air defenses and command and control centers once the F-35 has penetrated enemy airspace. The aim is to have the weapon fielded by 2026. Other developments are also boosting the F-35's ability to suppress and destroy enemy air defenses. In January this year, Lockheed Martin won a $97 million contract to integrate the AGM-88G Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missile with the F-35. The deal will see all 3 F-35 variants equipped with the air-to-surface weapon that hones in on electronic transmissions stemming from surface-to-air radar systems. Yet, the biggest offensive leap for the F-35 is its certification to carry nuclear weapons. US F-35As are now dual-capable, able to deliver the B-6112 nuclear gravity bomb, which offers a range of yields up to hundreds of kilotons. This makes the F-35 the first fifth-generation stealth fighter with tactical nuclear strike capability. Equipped to carry 2 B-61-12 bombs in their internal weapons bay, F-35s are now a vital part of the US's nuclear triad. Meanwhile, work is underway to modernize the F-35's engine and thermal management systems. The aircraft's Pratt & Whitney designed engine, the F-135, is well regarded, but it was developed from the F-119 that powers the F-22 Raptor. This means the genesis of its design is decades old, and a range of existing and new propulsion and thermal management issues are hitting the F-35 platform as it evolves. In response, the F-35's Joint Program Office is pushing ahead with an engine upgrade to deliver greater thrust and performance, as the demands being placed on the aircraft by new capability updates, including Block 4, continue to grow. In particular, the program is opting for the so-called engine core upgrade, after deciding not to pursue a new engine design for the aircraft. This was a point of some contention, but ultimately the DoD kicked off a $497 million funding package for the ECU in the Defense Appropriations Bill for the 2024 fiscal year. The ECU will enhance the power module and gearbox of the F-35, which are key components that can extract more power from the engine core. This upgrade will support all 3 F-35 variants and aim to reduce overall lifecycle costs and restore the F-135 engine's longevity, with minimal changes to the existing infrastructure. It is thought the ECU will reduce sustainment costs by about $26 billion over the F-35's lifecycle. In July 2024, Pratt & Whitney announced the ECU had cleared its preliminary design review and was on track to be fielded by 2029, well ahead of schedule. If this timeline is achieved, it will be a boon for the F-35 program given the nature of the high-profile delays and cost overruns that have dogged the aircraft's development in other areas. Notably, the ECU upgrade is being accompanied by updates to the F-35's power and thermal management system. According to the Government Accountability Office, the engine's existing cooling system is currently overtasked, meaning the F-135 is operating beyond its design parameters. The reason for this is the F-35 requires more air pressure from the engine to cool the aircraft's subsystems than initially thought. Although the engine met the original air pressure specifications set early in the development program, Lockheed Martin discovered in 2008 that more air pressure was needed for cooling. By 2013, Lockheed Martin requested a design change to increase the air pressure, but it was deemed too costly and time-consuming at that stage. Consequently, the program continued with the original engine design, accepting increased wear, maintenance, and reduced engine life due to the additional air pressure demands. But cooling problems will worsen as the F-35 program adds new capabilities, including Block 4 upgrades and future enhancements through to 2035. These upgrades require more cooling capacity and air pressure than the current PTMS and engine can support. In late July 2024, an exclusive story from Breaking Defense said that Lockheed Martin was set to open a competition to overhaul the F-35's cooling unit that could see incumbent PTMS provider Honeywell challenged by Collins Aerospace. A contract is expected to be issued later in 2024.